There is a moment in every life where silence becomes unbearable. Not the silence of the world, but the silence within you. A silence shaped by years of smiling when you didn't want to, nodding when you disagreed, showing up when your soul begged you to vanish. A silence filled with unspoken truths, swallowed desires and quiet rage. You don't remember when it started, but somewhere, somehow you became obedient to parents, to partners, to employers, to gods you never chose. And so you said yes, again and again, until your voice became a whisper, your will a shadow, and your life a mirror reflecting everyone but you. This is not virtue. This is exile. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this exile better than most. He saw that modern morality, this gospel of self-denial disguised as goodness, was not born from love, but from fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of standing alone, fear of the raw, untamed self that doesn't beg to be accepted. But what if your salvation begins not with another yes, but with a single burning, unapologetic no? No to guilt, no to obligation, no to inherited morality. This is not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. This is reclamation, a return to the temple within you, where your true voice waits, not to please, but to create. Saying no, Nietzsche would say, is not a rejection of life. It is its affirmation. It is the art of protecting the sacred. So begin here, not with answers, not with apologies, but with the courage to say, enough. Now we descend into the first truth. You were trained, not born, to nod your head. Somewhere between the trembling hands of your childhood and the expectations of society, you learned to say yes when your soul screamed no. You smiled when your spirit sank. You complied when every nerve in your body cried for rebellion. And each time you betrayed yourself, you were rewarded. They called you polite. They called you kind. They called you good. But Nietzsche would have called it a quiet form of slavery, the silent slavery of people-pleasing. This is the tyranny of yes, a silent empire that governs with smiles and politeness, cloaked in the illusion of virtue. You are praised when you sacrifice your needs, glorified when you suppress your truth, and loved conditionally, as long as you betray yourself gracefully. But every yes you give to others without consent from your soul is a small funeral of who you are. Nietzsche didn't trust this form of kindness. He saw how the herd worships harmony over honesty, comfort over truth. He knew the cost of a dishonest yes, how it dulls the edge of your will, how it bends your spine, how it breaks your instincts into submission. To please everyone is to vanish. How society rewards self-betrayal. Why do we do it? Because the world has built a sacred pedestal for the agreeable. The child who obeys is called well-raised. The adult who never disagrees is called mature. And in every role, lover, friend, worker, citizen, the path of least resistance is paved with yeses. But every reward you earn by betraying yourself deepens the cage you live in. You become dependent on applause. You become a performance. You may think you are loved, but you are loved only for the masks you wear, masks that Nietzsche would demand you burn. When you say yes from fear, you are not virtuous. You are frightened, and a frightened soul cannot be free. The illusion of being nice. To be nice is to be digestible, pleasant, palatable. It is to file down the sharp edges of your truth until you fit inside someone else's comfort zone. But Nietzsche didn't come to comfort you. He came to challenge you. He would ask, what if being nice is just a strategy of survival? What if your agreeableness is not kindness but camouflage? What if beneath your politeness lives a silent scream, a scream that no one hears because it is too quiet, too polite, too nice? Niceness is not love. It is avoidance. It avoids truth. It avoids confrontation. It avoids the sacred chaos of saying what you mean. You were not born to be nice. You were born to be real. Why saying yes can be a symptom of fear. Every yes that comes from fear is a no to yourself. You say yes to stay liked, yes to avoid conflict, yes to feel safe. But the safety you gain is a coffin lined with velvet yes, but still a coffin. You cannot grow where you are not free, and you are not free if your voice belongs to others. Nietzsche called for the Übermensch, the one who dares to create values beyond the herd. And this journey begins with a single, sacred act, the refusal. The courage to say no is the seed of all authenticity. You may lose people, you may lose praise, but what you gain is far more rare, yourself, because there is a place inside you that remembers who you were before fear taught you how to be agreeable. There is a deeper voice, buried beneath the noise of obligation and expectation, and it does not beg to be liked. It does not kneel to be accepted. It does not whisper. It roars, and that voice, Nietzsche would say, is divine. You've been taught that no is a wall, a rejection, a closing of doors. But Nietzsche, the great destroyer of illusions, saw something else. A sacred no is not an end. It is the beginning of something truer. To say no is not merely to refuse, it is to create. Saying no as an act of creation begins with destruction. Before the sculptor can carve beauty from stone, he must strike. Before the writer can shape a truth, he must erase 1,000 lies. And before you can live as yourself, you must learn to break the false agreements you've made with the world. Nietzsche's no is not a bitter defiance. It is a cleansing fire. It burns away the inherited morals, the unquestioned duties, the quiet scripts that tell you who you must be, so that from the ashes you might write your own commandments. You must become the hammer, not the anvil, not to destroy blindly, but to shatter the masks that keep your spirit from breathing. A true no is a violent birth, not of destruction, but of self-authorship, the will to power behind refusal. What gives your no its strength is not hatred, but will. Nietzsche spoke often of the will to power, that deep, primal drive not to dominate others, but to express the fullness of who you are. Saying no becomes powerful only when it comes from this sacred core, not as a reaction to others, but as a declaration of your own direction. This is not the no of the cynic or the rebel without a cause. This is the no of the one who has touched something real inside themselves and refuses to betray it. The world may call it selfish, but Nietzsche would call it sovereignty, because only when you say no to the values imposed upon you can you begin to create values that are your own. Amor fati, and the courage to offend. There is a deeper freedom in the Nietzschean soul, a freedom that doesn't beg to be understood. This is the path of amor fati, the love of one's fate, even the painful, even the misunderstood. To walk this path is to stop apologizing for the intensity of your existence. It is to say, this is who I am. I will not dilute myself for your comfort. And this often means you will offend. Truth offends. Power offends, authenticity offends, not because it is cruel, but because it refuses to shrink. You will be called arrogant, you will be called difficult, you will be told you are too much. Smile and say no to the cage they offer you. Let your existence be sharp, let your presence disturb. You are not here to be digested. Resentment versus authentic rebellion. But beware, not all refusals are free. Many say no, not from power, but from resentment. Nietzsche warned of this. The slave morality that says no, not to assert freedom, but to poison the freedom of others. This is not strength. This is the bitterness of the weak, disguised as morality. The one who says no to everything is just as enslaved as the one who says yes to all. You must learn to discern. Is your refusal rooted in your will to rise or in your fear of being small? Authentic rebellion is quiet, clear, focused. It is not noisy defiance. It is the sacred no that protects the space for your inner yes to emerge. Nietzsche's true rebel does not define themselves by opposition. They define themselves by creation. The time is coming when your no will echo like a bell through the halls of your past, shattering the mirrors of expectation, breaking the chains of guilt, calling your soul back from exile. But before you are free to build, you must understand what has bound you. And so we descend deeper into the twisted ancestral roots of guilt. Guilt is not a feeling, it is a system. A slow, invisible poison, passed from generation to generation, buried beneath rituals and commandments, until it becomes the voice inside your own mind whispering, "You're not enough." Nietzsche did not merely criticize guilt, he exposed it. He saw it as a tool of control, disguised as conscience. He traced it back to its roots, not in justice, but in power. To say no, you must first confront the empire of guilt within you. You must break the spell. How guilt was weaponized by religion. There was a time when power ruled through swords. Then came a time when it ruled through shame. Nietzsche saw in Christianity, particularly its later institutional forms, a dangerous alchemy, turning strength into sin, desire into depravity, and the natural instincts of the human being into a source of eternal debt. What could not be conquered by force was tamed by guilt. You were told that wanting was wrong, that questioning was rebellion. That joy without permission was pride, and pride the original sin. In this architecture of guilt, obedience became sacred and suffering became proof of virtue. But look closer. Who benefits from your guilt? Who profits from you apologizing for your desires, your anger, your hunger to live fully? Not the gods, the priests, the institutions, the frightened masses who need you small to feel safe. This is not spirituality. It is a psychological cage. Slave morality and the fear of selfishness. Nietzsche called it slave morality, a morality born not from strength but from resentment. The weak, unable to rise, redefine goodness in their own image. The strong, the bold, the joyful are recast as evil. The meek, the submissive, the guilt-ridden become saints. In this world, to love yourself is to be selfish. To honor your desires is to be dangerous. To say no is to betray the collective. But Nietzsche knew this is not morality. This is envy made sacred. And if you live by it, you will forever be at war with your own vitality, punishing yourself for being alive, apologizing for your strength, suppressing your truth in the name of false humility. Guilt is not a sign of your conscience. It is the scar of your domestication, the inner war between desire and duty. You feel it, don't you? That civil war inside you, where one voice says, live, and another says, obey. Desire pulls you toward experience, risk, freedom. Duty demands you stay small, responsible, agreeable. This is not a moral struggle. It is psychological warfare, and you are the battlefield. Nietzsche invites you to question which of these voices is truly yours, and to ask, who told me I must feel bad for wanting more? Who taught me that sacrifice is the highest virtue? Why must my joy be justified? To answer those questions is to risk exile, from culture, from community, even from family. But there is something worse than exile. To abandon yourself. There is no glory in dying for a duty you never chose, forgiving yourself for being strong. The final step is the hardest, forgiveness. Not forgiveness for your sins, for there are none, but forgiveness for having believed you had to shrink to be worthy of love. Forgive yourself for all the times you said yes when you wanted to say no. Forgive yourself for confusing obedience with peace. Forgive yourself for dimming your fire just to fit into someone else's narrative. And then forgive yourself for being powerful, because in this world, nothing is more threatening than a soul that does not apologize for its strength. Nietzsche's call is not to become cruel, but to become whole, to integrate the fierce and the gentle, the wild and the wise, to be capable of compassion without being enslaved by it, to say, without guilt, I owe you nothing except the truth of who I am. The path now turns toward liberation, not from others, but from the shame that bound you to them. In the next chapter, we rise into the sacred space where the no becomes a gift, and your boundaries become the architecture of your becoming. What if no is not a wall, but a doorway? What if every refusal, spoken with truth and courage, opens a passage back to yourself? This is the no that liberates. It does not scream, it does not beg, it simply draws a line. Not to push others away, but to protect what is sacred within you. Saying no is not an act of cruelty, it is a devotion, to your own becoming. How to set boundaries without shame. You were taught that setting boundaries is rude, that saying no makes you cold, that prioritizing yourself is selfish. But here is the paradox. Without boundaries, there is no intimacy, no truth, no real love, only performance, resentment, and collapse. Nietzsche would ask, what is the value of a relationship where you cannot be real? A boundary is not a punishment, it is a mirror. It says, this is who I am, this is what I will honor, this is where I end and you begin. When you set a boundary, you are not rejecting someone. You are revealing yourself. The shame you feel is not proof that you've done wrong. It is the echo of your conditioning, the residue of a world that thrives on your compliance. To say no with grace is to step out of the roles others cast you in and into the authorship of your own life. Why your no can be a gift. We often fear that no will hurt others. And yes, it might. But a false yes hurts much more. It breeds false hope. It creates silent contracts. It binds you to things you will one day resent or abandon. To give a sincere no is to offer clarity, honesty, a clean space for truth to breathe. Imagine someone saying no to you, not out of anger, but from a deep respect for their own truth. You would feel it. You might even admire it. That is what your no can become, a model of freedom, a permission slip for others to be real too. And in a world addicted to fakery, what greater gift is there than the truth, the sacred space of solitude? Every true no opens a sacred space, a space where no one else's voice echoes, where no one else's needs interrupt, where you are no longer performing for the crowd. This space is called solitude, not loneliness. Solitude. Nietzsche retreated often into solitude, not to escape the world, but to hear himself clearly. He believed that the deepest thoughts, the boldest truths, arise only when we step away from the herd. When you begin saying no to obligations, to noise, to false intimacy, you create the silence necessary for original thought. You begin to listen to the voice underneath all others. Solitude is not isolation, it is a temple, and to protect that temple, you must guard its gates with your no, from reaction to intention, the true yes. Eventually, your no leads you to something even more precious, a true, radiant, intentional yes. You begin to say yes not because you're afraid or obligated or conditioned, but because it aligns, because it reflects your essence, because it feels like home in your body. And that yes has power because it is chosen. This is what Nietzsche meant when he spoke of becoming the creator of values. Not inheriting, not obeying, but choosing, shaping, living your own truth. You are no longer reacting. You are responding, no longer proving, but creating, no longer pleasing, but being. Every no you have spoken, every uncomfortable, trembling refusal was preparing you for this. The day you stop apologizing for your truth is the day your soul begins to sing. We now arrive at the final gate, the culmination of every boundary, every rebellion, every sacred no. It is time to meet the version of yourself who no longer asks for permission to exist, the one who lives by a new law, their own. You have said no to guilt, to manipulation, to silence, to being what the world expected of you. Now, what will you say yes to? Nietzsche believed the highest task was not rebellion, but recreation. Not to destroy morality, but to give birth to a new ethos, sculpted by the strength of your inner world. To become the master of your own law is not to dominate others. It is to rule your life with such clarity, such honesty, such unapologetic presence, that no one dares to write your story but you, creating values that reflect your soul. You've spent your life living by borrowed truths. Now you begin the divine labor of value creation. What do you honor? What do you stand for? What will you protect? Not because you were told to, but because your soul insists. These values may look strange. They may offend. They may go against everything you were raised to believe. Good. That means they are yours. Nietzsche saw that true morality doesn't come from tradition. It comes from vision, and vision begins the moment you stop asking what is allowed and start asking what is real. So craft your ethics not from fear, but from depth. Let your boundaries reflect your sacredness. Let your yes be rare and holy. You are not here to live by someone else's commandments. You are here to write your own. The Overman's path of inner authority. The Übermensch, Nietzsche's Overman, is not a tyrant. He is the one who no longer needs to be governed. He does not look outward for validation or instruction. His compass is internal. His law is personal. His life is art. To walk this path, you must let go of the need to be understood. You may be called arrogant. You may be misunderstood, mocked, even feared. But the Overman is not moved by the opinions of the crowd. He walks with a strange stillness, not in opposition, but in deep alignment with a truth that burns quietly within. This is not ego, this is authenticity on fire. And once you taste that fire, you will never again betray yourself for approval. The fierce beauty of non-conformity. There is a wild beauty in living without apology. It's not about chaos. It's not about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It is about congruence. The harmony between what you believe, what you feel, and how you move through the world. You stop pretending, you stop shrinking, you stop explaining yourself to those who refuse to see you. Instead, you become a living contradiction to the culture of conformity, a reminder that truth is uncomfortable but irresistible. You walk differently, you speak differently. Your no carries weight. Your yes becomes sacred. You are no longer a character in someone else's narrative. You are the author. Say no to become who you are, call to action. And now, here you stand, on the edge of a new existence. The world will still ask for your obedience. It will still try to guilt you into silence. It will still reward your conformity and punish your sovereignty. But you have seen too much. You have felt too deeply. You have remembered who you are. So say no, again and again, to anything that asks you to betray yourself. And in doing so, you will say yes to the rarest of all things, a life that is truly wildly yours. If this spoke to something ancient inside you, don't let it fade. Rewatch, reflect, write your own commandments, and explore more of Nietzsche's fire and the philosophies that set you free in our next video. Your life is waiting for your refusal. Your destiny is waiting for your no. Are you ready to become the lawgiver of your own soul?